do if Barack Obama wins. Gingrich would be delighted to see Romney defeated in a general election by President Obama. It's a grudge thing for Gingrich now. It really feels like.
I've always had this theory, this granted totally conspiratorial whack job theory of my own, that Ron Paul doesn't want a speech at the convention, that Ron Paul doesn't want a plank in the platform, that Ron Paul doesn't particularly want to tweak the Republican Party or the Republican nominee toward what he wants. He sees himself as the leader of a movement, not as an electoral candidate. And what I think he wants to do with his delegates is make Mitt Romney not the nominee.
Richard,
what else is he going to do?
And he can do that at the convention. How? We don't know.
There has to be somebody else who can emerge, but other people can turn
on
down.
the floor with delegates, the second largest amount, he has a real power. You cannot exclude those delegates from entry because they're delegates. You can't not seat them because they're delegates. You've got a problem when you have an insurgent force, an independent force that now become the members of the party sitting on the floor. You have a problem.
But I think it's important to remember when we talk about Ron Paul, and it may well be that he in fact is trying to advance an idea. He's trying to lead a movement, that he's absolutely sincere about what he says, which I think he is. Republicans would be very deeply worried about Ron Paul mounting a third-party candidacy because it would hand the election to President Obama.
Right.
I think it's a remote possibility for one fact, because of Senator Rand Paul, who has a bright future in the Republican Party. And I think that fences Ron Paul in. And it may well be that he's setting up a movement that his son could one day lead as a candidate for President of the United States. But I do think that Ron Paul is going to stay inside the Republican tent in this election. And I think that he is really changing the debate to a degree inside the Republican Party. I think an underreported moment in all of this was last week in the debate when Rick Perry said, I would send troops back into Iraq. I don't think there's a single Republican policymaker in the country who thinks that's a good idea. And increasingly, you're starting to have this debate in the Republican Party that you saw John Huntsman talk about with there being some more circumspection about the use of American military force in places all around the world.
And
I think the terms of that debate are going to change. It will be interesting to see how that debate changes from a Romney perspective as he moves into a general election. I do think, as one of the things that Ed pointed out, I think it's a mistake for Republicans to attack the president on national security issues through the appeasement lens and everything else. I think it's a road to ruin. I think you go after the president on the economy, but I think you're going to see a lot more circumspection on these national security issues in the general election than you see in the primary.
Richard Viguerie, longtime conservative in the movement, some 50 years, told me that Ron Paul will not go third party because he does not want to ruin it for Rand Paul, his son.
Rand said that in New Hampshire this weekend. He did say that Ron won't run third party.
And Rand said that he would endorse the nominee. But what I'm saying is, and I'm going back to your point, Rachel, that could be a problem because if he's got 800 delegates, 500 delegates sitting on the floor, and Romney gets up and makes that kind of speech, how do you stop them from heckling? How do you stop them
Tell
from
him you're going to audit
being
the Fed,
disruptive?
that's really what he wants.
I mean, or any number of things they disagree with. What I'm saying is be careful what you wish for because you may get it because they're going to be in the tent, but they can't control them in the tent. And I think, and what are you going to have, Ron Paul run out there and tell them to be cool?
I think that Ron Paul, as the head of a movement, is looking ahead to his son's future. And I think that he would prefer his son to be leading an insurgent movement for liberty in this country rather than be the son of a guy who got 500 delegates in the Republican nominating contest and did nothing with them. So I think that Ron Paul is still an unpredictable force.
He made a little reference about that tonight. You know, he says, where have you been? You know, he's made that reference like, I didn't know you were out here.
Yeah,
you know?
I didn't know you were all here. I never could have seen this coming.
He's building,
He started running for president 24 years ago when he was 52 years old, and he started running as a third-party candidate, as a libertarian candidate. And what he's accomplished is he has entered certainly into the Republican dialogue basic questions about the very existence of Social Security, the very existence of the social safety net, and the very existence of much of what modern government does. And that is a large philosophical point that has had a real impact in the Republican Party and to a great extent has controlled the actual governing dialogue in the House of Representatives and the Senate this year. It's a very important component that President Obama is now up against that no no previous president ever really had to contend with. The possibility that there were some members of the House who thought, you know what, we shouldn't have Medicare at all. That the father of that kind of thinking is Ron Paul.
Right now we're waiting for Newt Gingrich. We're also waiting for Rick Santorum, both of whom are giving very hotly awaited, due to give hotly awaited speeches this evening. We're expecting to hear from Rick Santorum probably first before Newt Gingrich. But again, we're keeping an eye on both of those campaign headquarters right now for those speeches. Those are due just ahead. Keep it right here on MSNBC as we continue to cover the New Hampshire Republican primary tonight.
What was that?
How are we going to deal with this? If we can get to that tree line, we can better defend ourselves.
Here they go!
Go! Go! There's things in your life, whatever they might be, make you want that next minute more than the last. Make you fight for it.
Don't stop!
The Gray. Rated R. Starts January 27th.
With Angie's List, I save time, money, and I avoid frustration.
You'll find reviews on home repair to healthcare, written by people just like you.
You want to be sure the money you're about to spend is money well spent.
Angie's List. Reviews you can trust.
Laces? Really? Slip-on's the way to go. More people do that, security would be like a...
There's no charge for the bag.
Thanks. I know a quiet little place where we can get some work done is a three-pronged plug.
I have club passes. Now there's a mileage card that offers special perks on United, like a free checked bag, United Club passes, and priority boarding.
Thanks. Okay. What's your secret?
The new United Mileage Plus Explorer card. Get it and you're in.
Cranberry juice? Wake up!
That's good morning, veggie style.
For half the calories plus veggie nutrition, could have had a V8.
When I grow up, I want to fix up old houses.
When I grow up, I want to take him on his first flight.
I want to run a marathon.
I'm going to own my own restaurant.
When I grow up, I'm going to start a band.
At AARP, we believe you're never done growing.
Just want to get my car back.
Discover what's next in your life. Get this free travel bag when you join at aarp.org/join today.
In our ongoing coverage of the New Hampshire primary, Rick Santorum speaking just now.
When you're running in a state like New Hampshire that, had a lot of folks here and spending a lot of time here and a lot of money, we knew it would be tough. But you know what? The message we had of going out and believing in the American people, believing that we needed to have opportunity, not just for some in America, but we needed someone who was going to go out and speak for all Americans to be able to have the opportunities to rise in society. And we took that message here to New Hampshire. We took it talking about our manufacturing plan, talking about what we're going to do to grow this economy. And we took it to talk about faith and family as the bedrock of our society. And by your work and the grassroots effort and the crowds that we had, we built this campaign here in New Hampshire in just a very short period of time. We didn't spend a lot of money, but we put a lot of effort into this, and we put our message out there. We came where the campaign was, and we delivered a message not just for New Hampshire, but we delivered a message for America, that we have a campaign here. Yeah.
Rick Santorum speaking right now in New Hampshire. Newt Gingrich speaking at the same time. Let's dip into Mr. Gingrich's comments.
And one of the great virtues of running is that everywhere you go, you learn something, and you pick up a better understanding of America. And I have to say that the leadership that Speaker O'Brien and the House showed in developing a brand new approach that I hope will become adopted everywhere in America, where they actually had the Ways and Means Committee report first, and it indicated how much money they would have. And they then actually adopted a budget to fit their income, which is the opposite of every other state I know of in the country, which writes a budget and then tries to go find more of your money to fill in what they think they need. And the result was a very courageous and a very serious effort in which they cut 11% out of spending, which is a remarkable achievement, which, if accomplished in Washington, would begin to move us back on the right track. So, Speaker, I really commend you for the leadership. This is step 2 of a long process. And having both been a historian and been active a long time, you learn certain things. So let me put in context where we are. We have an opportunity, I think, to unify the country around a message of jobs, economic growth, and very dramatic programs. That opportunity is to reach out to everybody of every background who would rather have paychecks than food stamps, to convince them that what Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s in creating millions of new jobs, what we did when I was Speaker in the 1990s in creating millions of new jobs, can be done again. This campaign is going to go on to South Carolina. And we're going to offer the American people something very different. We're going to offer them an opportunity to participate in very dramatic, very fundamental change in Washington, D.C. And we're going to prove that I both understand the principles and I understand the practice. I learned a lot of those principles from Ronald Reagan and from Margaret Thatcher. I got to practice them as a junior congressman working with President Reagan. I got to practice them as Speaker working with Bill Clinton. And I want to suggest to you, when Ronald Reagan was president, we had to find a way to get votes through the House despite the fact that Tip O'Neill was Speaker. When I was Speaker, we had to find a way to get bills signed despite the fact that Bill Clinton was president. I believe if we had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Gingrich presidency, it would be amazing how much we could get done and how rapidly we could get it done.
Newt Gingrich fighting it out for 4th place in New Hampshire tonight. Mitt Romney finishing 1st. Ron Paul finishing 2nd. John Huntsman finishing 3rd. Let's go back to Mr. Gingrich.
To South Carolina tonight and kick off tomorrow morning a campaign for jobs and economic growth, a campaign for a balanced budget, a campaign for returning power to the states through the 10th Amendment, a campaign for a strong national security, a campaign for a stable, solid Social Security program, both for people now on it and for the young people who are here who deserve a chance in their lifetime to have an even better program with an even greater return, because if we are smart, we can do better things for people. The Washington alternatives. How do we raise taxes and cut spending in a way that causes you pain on the spending side and causes you pain on the tax side is exactly backwards. I was really struck. This is part of learning. When we had a debate the other day and we were asked a question about LIHEAP, with the heating assistance program, and it was phrased in a perfectly Washington way. Are you going to run a bigger deficit so you can help more people, or are you going to cut people off and hurt them so you can shrink the deficit? Nobody on the panel asking the question seemed to consider an alternative. What if we simply went out and developed American oil and gas, brought down the cost of heating oil, and didn't need to help people because the price came down? That idea of doing more and doing it better does not exist in the Washington lexicon. And it makes it very hard for our friends in the news media to cover because it's so strange. What if you just were innovative? What if you just had new approaches? What if you just did everything Americans have always done? The fact is, the entrepreneurial free enterprise system, which attracted people from Benjamin Franklin to the Wright brothers